Most beliefs about life after 75 are shaped by outdated stereotypes or fear, and these misconceptions often overshadow the actual lived experiences of people in this age group. When many younger people think about aging beyond 75, their minds jump to images of frailty, dependence, or the gradual loss of relevance in society. These ideas have been reinforced for decades through media portrayals, cultural attitudes, and even the way health advice is framed. The problem with this perspective is that it focuses almost entirely on decline and overlooks the extraordinary adaptability and richness of human life in later years. In reality, the process of aging, especially after 75, is far more nuanced. While it is true that the body undergoes physical changes such as reduced muscle mass, slower recovery rates, and sometimes diminished senses, these are only part of the story. What often goes unrecognized is that the mind, emotions, and spirit are not on the same trajectory of inevitable decline. In fact, in many cases, they are on a path of expansion. This period can be marked by deeper emotional stability, a refined understanding of life, and an increased ability to find joy in the small details that younger people may overlook. Part of the misunderstanding comes from how society defines value in a person's life. In youth, value is often tied to productivity, physical energy, and the pursuit of milestones such as career success, building families, or achieving financial stability. However, after 75, a person's value may be better measured by the richness of their wisdom, their ability to mentor, their emotional resilience, and their capacity for meaningful relationships. These qualities are often undervalued in a world that prioritizes speed and efficiency over depth and reflection. Scientific studies on aging now provide evidence to challenge some of these stereotypes. For example, research into emotional regulation shows that older adults often manage stress better than younger individuals. Their life experience gives them a broader perspective on challenges, allowing them to respond with more patience and less reactivity. Similarly, decision-making can improve with age, particularly in complex or interpersonal situations, because it draws on decades of accumulated knowledge and pattern recognition. These skills may not show up on a resume, but they are incredibly valuable in family, community, and even societal contexts. Cultural differences also play a role in shaping these truths. In many traditional societies, elders are revered as the carriers of history, tradition, and community values. In such contexts, turning 75 is not viewed as the beginning of the end, but as a transition into a highly respected role. This contrasts sharply with more industrialized and youth-centric societies, where aging is often framed as a problem to be managed rather than a stage to be embraced. The gap between these cultural views highlights how much of our perception of aging is socially constructed rather than biologically inevitable. One important factor that supports a more positive reality of life after 75 is adaptability. People in this age group have often weathered multiple life transitions, career changes, family transformations, health challenges, and the loss of loved ones. Over time, these experiences build a form of psychological resilience that can't be taught in a classroom. Instead of being easily shaken by change, many older adults develop a mindset that allows them to face uncertainty with a sense of calm and acceptance. This adaptability is one of the hidden strengths of aging, enabling people to adjust their lifestyle, expectations, and habits to match their current abilities and interests without losing their sense of purpose. Another overlooked truth is the capacity for joy and meaning after 75. While some people may fear that later life becomes monotonous, many older adults report that they find greater satisfaction in everyday moments, a warm conversation, a shared meal, or a walk in nature. This appreciation is partly due to a shift in time perspective. As people age, they become more aware that time is finite, which often leads them to focus on what truly matters. They may be less likely to chase superficial achievements and more likely to invest in experiences, relationships, and activities that bring genuine fulfillment. Of course, it would be unrealistic to paint aging after 75 as entirely free of difficulties. Health concerns, mobility limitations, and grief are real challenges. However, the outdated image of old age as a period of only loss and dependency ignores the equally real gains in emotional depth, life satisfaction, and clarity of values. The truth is that the narrative of decline is incomplete without acknowledging the other side of the equation, the growth, wisdom, and liberation that can accompany this stage. When society begins to see aging after 75 through this more balanced lens, the way we prepare for and engage with it will change. Instead of fearing it, People might approach later life with curiosity and even excitement, knowing that it holds possibilities for personal growth, deeper connection, and continued contribution. This requires dismantling the old stereotypes and replacing them with a more accurate, evidence-based, and human-centered understanding of what it means to live fully in one's later years. In the end, aging beyond 75 is not a simple story of decline. It is a complex, multi-dimensional phase of life that deserves respect, recognition, and even admiration. The people who reach this stage carry within them a living archive of history, personal triumphs, and lessons learned through decades of living. Their presence in families, communities, and society enriches everyone around them, not because they can do everything they once did, but because they embody the wisdom of what truly matters. Research shows that after 75, the story of aging is not only about the body slowing down, it's about the mind, emotions, and social connections playing an even bigger role in overall health and quality of life. For decades, conversations about longevity have centered on genetics, as if the length and quality of your later years were almost entirely predetermined by your DNA. While genes do play a role, modern science has revealed something far more empowering. Lifestyle choices, mental habits, and social engagement often have a stronger influence on how we age even after we've reached 75. One of the most fascinating findings in neuroscience is the concept of brain plasticity, the brain's ability to adapt, rewire, and form new connections at any age. This means that even in the 8th or 9th decade of life, people can learn new skills, improve memory, and strengthen cognitive function through activities that challenge the brain. Whether it's learning a new language, practicing a musical instrument, or simply engaging in thought-provoking conversations, the brain remains capable of growth far beyond what older models of science once suggested. The idea that you can't teach an old dog new tricks has been repeatedly disproven by research showing how continued mental stimulation helps preserve cognitive health. Emotional resilience, another key factor, often grows stronger with age. By the time someone reaches 75, they have lived through countless changes, setbacks, and uncertainties. They have experienced personal loss, shifts in relationships, and health challenges, and yet they've adapted each time. This accumulation of experience fosters a level of perspective that younger people often haven't yet developed. Older adults tend to be better at choosing their emotional battles, letting go of grudges, and focusing on the present moment. This emotional stability not only contributes to better mental health, but also influences physical health, as stress and chronic anxiety have well-documented negative effects on the body. Social bonds are another cornerstone of healthy aging after 75. Studies consistently show that strong relationships can be more important for longevity than even diet or exercise alone. Being part of a community, whether through family, friendships, religious groups, clubs, or volunteer work, provides emotional support, a sense of belonging, and even a reason to stay active. Isolation, on the other hand, has been linked to higher risks of cognitive decline, depression, and even heart disease. What's remarkable is that the benefits of social connection don't diminish with age. In fact, they may become more crucial than ever. After 75, maintaining or even expanding one's social circle can be a powerful protective factor for both mind and body. Physical activity also remains a vital part of the picture. While competitive sports or intense workouts may no longer be practical for most people in this age group, regular movement, such as walking, stretching, swimming, or light strength training, can improve mobility, balance, and cardiovascular health. The misconception that exercise becomes irrelevant after a certain age has been thoroughly debunked. In truth, the human body continues to respond positively to movement well into later years. Even small changes like gardening, taking the stairs, or engaging in household tasks contribute to maintaining independence and preventing age-related decline. Nutrition is another area where science has shifted its understanding. After 75, nutrient absorption can slow and appetite may change, making it important to prioritize foods rich in vitamins, minerals, fiber, and protein. Diets emphasizing whole foods, fruits, vegetables, legumes, whole grains, and lean proteins help maintain energy levels and support the immune system. However, eating well in later years is not just about physical health. It's also about enjoyment and social interaction. Sharing meals with others can provide the dual benefit of nutritional and emotional nourishment, strengthening both body and spirit. One often overlooked aspect of longevity is mental attitude. Optimism, a sense of humor, and the ability to find meaning in everyday life have been linked to longer, healthier lives. After 75, people who maintain a forward-looking mindset tend to recover more quickly from setbacks and experience fewer symptoms of depression. This doesn't mean ignoring difficulties or pretending everything is fine. Rather, it's about cultivating a perspective that emphasizes gratitude, growth, and the possibility of joy at any stage of life. Importantly, all these factors, brain plasticity, emotional resilience, social engagement, physical activity, nutrition, and mindset are interconnected. A person who stays socially active is more likely to be physically active. Someone who challenges their brain with new learning often feels a greater sense of purpose, which in turn supports emotional well-being. These reinforcing cycles demonstrate that aging after 75 is not solely about the limitations one faces, but about the strengths and resources that can be actively nurtured. The scientific understanding of longevity also dispels the myth that it's too late to make positive changes after a certain age. Even small improvements, starting a new hobby, walking more often, joining a social group, or adding more vegetables to the diet, can have a measurable impact on health and happiness. The body and mind remain remarkably responsive to positive inputs, and change is possible at any stage of life. This is a hopeful and empowering truth that many people have never heard before. Ultimately, the science of aging after 75 tells a far more inspiring story than the one most of us grew up with. It is not merely a slow descent into limitation, but a phase where the right combination of habits, relationships, and mindset can lead to continued vitality and fulfillment. Genetics may set the stage, but it's the daily choices, mental, emotional, and social, that write the script for how those later years will feel and what they will make possible. When viewed through this lens, aging is not something to dread, but something to engage with intentionally, knowing that the rewards can be profound. Society often undervalues the contribution of those over 75, and this undervaluation is rooted in a narrow, outdated definition of productivity. For much of modern history, productivity has been measured in economic terms. How much a person earns, how many hours they work, and how their output compares to younger, faster, or more physically capable individuals. This model might make sense in a factory or corporate setting, but it completely fails to capture the full range of human value, especially in the later decades of life. After 75, productivity is not about the number of hours worked or the physical labor performed. It is about the intellectual, emotional, and social impact a person can make, impact that often grows richer with age. People over 75 often hold a lifetime of accumulated knowledge, skills, and experiences that no amount of formal education could replicate. They have navigated decades of change, from technological revolutions to shifting cultural norms, and this broad perspective gives them a unique ability to offer guidance and solutions in ways younger generations might not consider. In family settings, this can mean mentoring children and grandchildren, helping them navigate challenges and preserving traditions that give identity and meaning to the family unit. In communities, it can mean volunteering, teaching, or serving as role models for resilience and adaptability. These contributions may not appear in productivity reports, but they strengthen the social fabric in ways that are invaluable. Redefining productivity also means recognizing that intellectual engagement does not have an expiration date. Many people in their late 70s and beyond continue to produce art, write books, research, and innovate in their chosen fields. Their pace may be different from earlier years, but their depth of thought is often greater. In fact, creativity can flourish with age precisely because there is less pressure to conform to rigid career demands or chase external recognition. Freed from the need to prove themselves in competitive markets, many older adults pursue projects out of genuine curiosity and passion, which can lead to deeply original and meaningful work. Emotional productivity is another dimension that is rarely acknowledged but is just as important. After 75, many individuals become anchors for their families and social circles. They offer emotional stability, perspective, and a calming influence during crisis. This emotional labor, though invisible to economic measures, helps others function better in their own lives. For example, a grandparent who regularly listens, encourages, and supports younger family members may be preventing stress, related health problems, or relationship breakdowns for those individuals. On a community level, older volunteers often bring patience and empathy to social programs, contributing to environments that foster trust and cooperation. There is also the matter of wisdom, which is not merely knowledge but the ability to apply it in complex real-world situations. Wisdom is forged through years of trial, error, reflection, and adaptation. After 75, a person may be slower in physical movement but faster in identifying the root of a problem or sensing the underlying dynamics of a situation. This capacity can be invaluable in decision-making processes, whether in family disputes, community planning, or even business consulting. Yet, because wisdom is intangible and harder to quantify, It is often overlooked when assessing a person's societal usefulness. A further point to consider is that productivity in later life often shifts from personal advancement to collective benefit. While younger adults may focus on building their careers, wealth, and reputations, many people after 75 turn their energy toward legacy building, investing in causes, mentoring others, and supporting institutions that will outlast them. This form of productivity may not immediately generate profits, but it creates long-term value for society. Nonprofit organizations, cultural institutions, and local charities often rely heavily on older volunteers and donors whose contributions are both steady and heartfelt. Technology has also opened new doors for productivity after 75. Online platforms allow older adults to teach, share their stories, sell creative work, and collaborate with others across the globe without leaving their homes. This means that their intellectual and creative output can now reach wider audiences, breaking the barriers that once limited late life contributions to local communities alone. In this way, the definition of productive becomes more expansive, recognizing that influence and impact are not bound by age. However, for this redefinition of productivity to take root, societal attitudes must change. Younger generations need to see aging not as a withdrawal from life stage, but as a transition into a different, equally valuable role. This requires challenging stereotypes in media, workplace policies, and even family expectations. When older adults are consistently portrayed as burdens or passive recipients of care, their potential to contribute is overshadowed. But when they are portrayed as active participants in shaping their world, the narrative shifts and opportunities for contribution multiply. Finally, redefining productivity after 75 is as much about perception as it is about societal recognition. Many older adults have internalized the message that their usefulness has expired, leading them to withdraw from activities where they could still make a meaningful difference. Encouraging a mindset that values ongoing growth, learning, and service can help individuals see their later years not as a time to fade away, but as a chapter rich with potential. When older adults view themselves as capable contributors, they are more likely to engage in activities that keep them physically, mentally, and socially active, further reinforcing the very productivity that others may have doubted. In the end, productivity after 75 is not a smaller version of what it was in earlier decades. It is a different kind altogether, one that is often deeper, more intentional, and more focused on legacy than on immediate gain. It thrives in the realms of wisdom, mentorship, creativity, and emotional connection. These forms of productivity may not always be measurable in traditional ways, but they are the kind that enriches families, strengthens communities, and leaves lasting impacts long after the work is done. By recognizing and valuing this, we open the door to a society that truly benefits from the gifts of every generation, not just the youngest or the fastest. From better emotional regulation to a refined sense of priorities, people often experience unexpected freedom, self-acceptance, and clarity after 75, benefits younger generations rarely anticipate. These gifts of aging tend to arrive quietly, without fanfare, but they have a profound effect on the way life is experienced in the later years. For much of life, especially in adulthood, there is a constant pressure to meet expectations, those of employers, family members, peers, and society as a whole. By the time someone reaches their mid-70s, much of this pressure has either faded away or lost its grip, replaced by a deeper understanding of what truly matters. One of the most notable changes is emotional regulation. Over decades, people learn, sometimes through hardship, how to better manage their reactions to stress, disappointment, and conflict. After 75, this skill is often well honed. Older adults tend to be less quick to anger, more patient with themselves and others, and more able to let go of grudges that once seemed impossible to release. This emotional steadiness not only creates a calmer inner life, but also strengthens relationships. Friends, family, and community members often find comfort in the presence of someone who radiates stability. Particularly in uncertain times, this greater control over emotions often comes hand in hand with a refined sense of priorities. Life after 75 offers a vantage point that younger people simply cannot have yet. Having lived through various cycles of success and failure, gain and loss, older adults often see that much of what once felt urgent, career advancement, material accumulation, or winning every argument, matters far less than they once believed. Instead, time, connection, health, and personal fulfillment rise to the top of the priority list. Activities that nourish the soul, such as meaningful conversations, creative pursuits, spiritual practices, or time in nature, become more important than chasing achievements that no longer hold the same weight. Unexpected freedom is another gift of this stage. Many responsibilities that once dictated daily life, raising children, maintaining a demanding job, or managing complex financial pressures, are often reduced or gone altogether. This doesn't mean life becomes idle. Rather, it opens space for choices that reflect personal desires instead of obligations. A person over 75 might take up painting after decades of wanting to try, or travel to a place they had long postponed visiting. This freedom is not only practical but also psychological, as the constant need to prove oneself to others tends to dissolve. Self-acceptance is another area where many older adults experience growth. In earlier years, it's common to compare oneself to others, to feel pressure to meet certain standards of appearance, success, or lifestyle. After decades of living, and especially after 75, many realize that such comparisons are not only exhausting but also meaningless. They've seen enough of life to understand that everyone carries their own struggles and imperfections. This acceptance doesn't mean complacency. It means a more compassionate relationship with oneself, where personal worth is not tied to unrealistic ideals. Clarity is perhaps the most profound and surprising benefit. With age often comes the ability to see patterns in life more clearly. Older adults can look back and recognize the lessons in their experiences, seeing how challenges shape them and how certain decisions influence the course of their journey. This clarity often extends to interpersonal relationships. People become more adept at recognizing who truly adds value to their lives and who drains their energy. It becomes easier to set healthy boundaries and to invest in connections that are reciprocal and nourishing. What's fascinating is that these benefits, emotional regulation, refined priorities, freedom, self-acceptance, and clarity, are not dependent on perfect health or flawless circumstances. Even in the presence of physical limitations or illness, many older adults continue to cultivate these qualities. This suggests that they are less about external conditions and more about an internal shift in perspective. Younger people, who often focus heavily on the physical changes of aging, may be unaware that this internal shift can bring a level of peace and satisfaction that rivals or even surpasses the excitement of youth. Another dimension worth noting is how these qualities influence those around them. A grandparent who models patience, acceptance, and joy in everyday life can have a powerful, lasting impact on younger generations. Their example serves as a counterbalance to the hurried, competitive pace of modern living, showing that fulfillment does not depend on constant striving. Communities, too, benefit from the wisdom and stability that older members provide, especially in times of collective challenge. Perhaps the most surprising truth is that these advantages are not purely accidental. They can be cultivated. People over 75 who engage in reflection, maintain social bonds, stay mentally and physically active, and remain open to learning often deepen these benefits even further. It's a virtuous cycle. Emotional regulation leads to better relationships, which in turn support a sense of freedom and self-acceptance, which then make it easier to maintain clarity about life's direction. In the end, while the physical changes of aging may be visible and easy to measure, the inner transformations after 75 are far less obvious but just as real. They represent a kind of maturity that can only come from time lived fully through joys and sorrows, successes and failures, gains and losses. Younger generations may not anticipate these gifts because they cannot yet see the full arc of life. But for those who have reached this stage, these qualities can make the later years not a slow fading of life, but a period rich with meaning, balance, and a profound sense of personal truth.